Happy Sunday. Hello. How are you? Let me make sure everything is good and functioning well before I get into the topic. Sound is good. No echo. If you end up joining me live, man, I feel like there's a lot of light. Anyhow, let me know if there is echo, if the sound is okay, if everything is okay, if you end up catching this live. If not, please enjoy the replay. And thank you so much for clicking on this video. Again, I put the intent behind the creation of this channel that I would like to gather my soul tribe, if you know what I mean. If whoever would benefit the most from these videos, even if it's just one word that I say on here, may this content find you. May it find you in this world of noise that we live in. Something came through to me the other day, and I decided to come on here because I can't always be creating short videos. I like my lives. I like doing lives, and I would eventually probably maybe dedicate this entire channel just for lives. For now, we'll test little things here and there. So thanks for being here with me. The download that came through was about getting triggered. And it was personal for me because I still get triggered. There are specific things and specific times that I get triggered. Specific things specifically with regards to how I grew up, the culture, the religion that I grew up in. These things really trigger me, especially when I encounter them. I encounter people who still enforce a lot of the negativity, let's just put it that way, that I grew up in, or at the very least behave as if they were still under the influence of that ideology. And I still get triggered, and I have to catch myself, and it's really difficult because it's such a personal thing. And the same goes for you. There probably is something, regardless how spiritual, regardless how awake and aware and evolved you consider yourself to be, there has to be something that triggers you more than normal, something that people can easily, they press a button and you just flare up out of the blue, and you really have to catch yourself. And that's what this is about. And again, I'm not here to lecture, even though sometimes I sound like I am. But I'm going to go back and rewatch this because this message is intended for the viewer as well as for me. The download came for me. I know this. But it is because I am of service of the light. I feel the need to share. You don't know who you might be able to help. So part and parcel, I have my notes, so you'll see my gaze go back and forth. Sorry about that. Part and parcel of becoming aware and the current evolution that we're going through in consciousness, which is a very heart-centered evolution. Which is why, you're actually seeing the opposite right now in the world. You're seeing a lot of hatred. You're seeing a lot of cruelty. And it's important to catch yourself. To catch yourself when you fall in those sort of like a pitfall. I don't really know what you'd call it. Like, evolve. Try to pick yourself up and evolve. As difficult as it might be, it requires more than a try or two or three or four, and it really requires don't judge yourself, don't get angry with yourself, just have space, compassion, hold compassion for the people around us as well as for yourself, okay, when you do falter. So this evolution of consciousness that we're currently going through, you're going to find yourself less and less triggered by people around you, especially those who are unconscious. It's difficult when it comes from someone who pretends or thinks that they are conscious, then you get triggered because, they're supposed to be, talking the talk, walking the walk, and they're not. But it's easier when it comes from someone who is less conscious. And I am not here to poo-poo on anyone who has not evolved, who has not awakened, who is not conscious, who is still operating fully from ego. I have friends who still operate fully from ego, but I meet them and they meet me in a place of respect. I don't belittle them. In the beginning they would belittle me, and I really put a stop to that very quickly. I told them, if you want me in your life, the belittling has to stop. Doesn't matter how woo-woo you think I am. Doesn't matter how out there you think I am. I treat you with dignity and respect. Let's meet each other here. And that is sort of where we can meet each other, the conscious and the unconscious. And that's going to be our bridge. That's going to be what's going to bridge the divide this fracture that has happened in the world. And it's only become more evident and more more severe. For me, I started to sense it, since the pandemic. And it's just been worse and worse and worse. You have to agree, not to disagree, but you have to agree to meet each other in a place of harmony, integrity, love, and respect. That's going to be the future for us all, regardless our differences. So exceptions for this include being in imminent and immediate danger, physically, especially physically, or if you're experiencing any kind of abuse. I am not telling you to sit there and take abuse because you're conscious and you're evolved. Please get yourself out of that situation, regardless what kind of abuse it is, because if you're an empath like myself, emotional and mental and verbal abuse can be even worse than physical abuse. So even in situations that are sort of they've not manifested as full-blown abuse, but your boundaries are being intruded upon, you're not feeling comfortable anymore, you're going to find that you're going to choose to remove yourself from the situation rather, and this is the key point, rather than retaliate. Retaliation is going to be something you used to do. The previous you used to get angry. I'm going to do this for that person. I'm going to scheme. I'm going to sit there and think about how I'm going to hurt this person and get back at them. That was the previous. That's the old version. That's the version that's the old earth, I want to say. But that energy belongs in the old world, not in the world that we are co-creating together. So the Sufi teachings, I like to fall back to the Sufi teachings because I have learned so much and I have grown so much from the Sufi textbooks that I have read. There are two things that I want to sort of take out from those books and introduce to you. Number one is when you're awake, when you're aware, when you're conscious, they compare it to someone who, let's say you're in a house full of people and the people that are around you are asleep. They're asleep and you're the only one who's awake. Do you start screaming and waking everybody up, or do you sort of tiptoe around? You make sure you don't disturb people. Hopefully, I hope you're the kind of person that tiptoes around and minds themselves and sort of minds their own business, because these people are trying, they're not awake yet. It's not their time. So that's number one. Number two is the most weak people. And you can think of it in many forms of weakness. I think of it in intellectual weakness. The most intellectually weak are the most easily triggered. Let me repeat that for you so that you can hear it. The most intellectually weak are the most easily triggered or angered. So if you take that phrase and look at the state of the world right now, you will understand a lot, and you will perhaps be less emotionally involved in a lot of what's going on. I hope. The people who are easily angered, who lash out with ease, they are weak in their convictions. They are weak in their beliefs, and they are weak, if they even have it, in their knowledge. An example that I like to give is, from my part of the world, the radicals and the fundamentalists and the ideologues who have befriended the radicals and the fundamentalists and the ideologues in this part of the world. East has met the West on this platform. They are the most easily angered. And again, I'm not trying to other. Really not trying to other. I hope people see this. I'm trying to explain something so that we stop othering each other. So, if you're easily angered, yes, those people who have very rigid beliefs, because their beliefs are so weak, and they're so weak and you can't poke a hole. They can't handle you poking holes in their beliefs, in their fantasy that they think is real, and they've come to identify and fuse who they are with this belief system. So if you poke holes in this belief system, in this, whatever it is, be it a political party, be it a religion, be it environmentalism, be it some sort of, it's seeped into society in many shapes and forms. If you start questioning that, they will lose their minds, because they can't have anyone shake their beliefs. They can't have anyone question their beliefs. That's how weak their beliefs are. So instead of questioning and examining what is this that I believe in and I identify with, they then retaliate against you. They go after you. They want to harm you. They want to silence you. They want to destroy you. Because their own foundation is weak, and they cannot handle any challenge of that foundation. You can't. That causes them instability, and they're not ready for this destabilization. They don't have an alternate belief, an alternate world, an alternate identity to go to if this one was to collapse. So it's all a protective mechanism, and you have to think of it this way. The people who are easily triggered are the most weak. Just period, full stop. That's it. That's, if you can just take that from this live stream, I believe this will make your life a lot more easier. Some examples for this that, again, I can give you from living in my part of the world and where I'm at right now are blasphemy laws. Blasphemy laws have made themselves, they've re-emerged in the West because there has been an exodus of extremists from the East that came into the West under the guise of humanitarian, refugees and all that. And unfortunately, they've befriended your politicians, and now you're seeing blasphemy laws emerge. The term Islamophobia, that's a very mild form. It's a very westernized, civil way. It's still nasty though. The energy is still the same. Whereas in my part of the world, if you question the religion, if you question the political figures, you lose your head immediately. There's no question about it. And there are examples, many examples of political prisoners. I'm not going to mention them by name because last time I did, I got into trouble. But you can just, Google search political prisoners or atheists who were imprisoned because they left or publicly denounced the religion in Saudi Arabia, for example. A good list will come out for you. So that's because the extremists who put these laws into place, they have identified and fused themselves with the ideology or the religion or whatever it is you want to call it, and they can't handle the challenge of it. They just can't. So because they're in positions of power, it's easier for them to apply these blasphemy laws. And it's the same with words like Islamophobia. That is a horrible, horrible word, might I add, and I'm seeing it a lot where I live, and people are starting to use it, and the court systems are starting to use it against people. And just a reminder that there's no such thing as an Islamophobia. This is a mick word. This is a made up word, and it's created to silence any critic of the religion because it blurs the lines between critique of a Muslim and critique of the religion. And regardless, even if you're critiquing Muslim, as long as you're not being an outright bigot, which is, tons of that on Twitter, but as long as you're not discriminating against them because of their religion, it's funny. I came to Canada in 2003, and I was a doctor when I came, and I worked at the hospital here in the province. And within a month of my arriving and starting my internship, I started getting emails. And I'm only giving you this example because it relates to the topic, just to separate, anti-Muslim bigotry from, criticizing the religion, or criticizing anyone from that religion if they do something bad or wrong. They deserve to be criticized. So I started getting emails from the hospital server into my hospital server email from a nurse. She identified herself as a nurse, and she called me a Muslim pig. We don't want you here, go back. Just horrible, horrible emails. So I ended up going to the administration and I showed them, this is the internet, the intranet, not the internet, the intranet from the hospital system itself. So I believe it was easily trackable, but the administration told me that they can't find out who this is, and they shut the case and they closed it. That was my first experience in Canada. Now, I was an atheist. Like, I had openly left the religion at that point. So it was very interesting to experience that. And that's what I'm talking about. When you're just being an outright bigot against someone without knowing anything about them, just outside of their religion or the faith that they come from. So that is terrible, and that's bad. But Islamophobia is a very interesting word, and I hope the West wakes up to words like this and what they're intended for. They're intended to silence criticism, and that includes criticism. Usually it's the extremists that these words serve. It's the extremists who benefit from blasphemy motions, blasphemy laws, and all of that. Sorry, I spent way too much time on this than I was intending. So back to what I was saying. If you are a conscious human being, you will find that you do not put too much weight into the words or actions of children. If you're an adult, let's not say a conscious, you're an adult who's evolved enough and mature. You're a mature, self-respecting adult. And a little child, a toddler, literally a toddler, 3-year-old, comes up to you and calls you a name. Doesn't matter what that name is, anything, accuses you of something, and how would you feel? Would you get angry and start reacting, no, and start fighting with the toddler and get in their face? And would you do that? Or would you just sort of, humble yourself, feel empathy, maybe a little bit of laughter, at the entertainment that is happening in front of you? And just understand that that toddler is just at a different level of consciousness, of evolution, of everything than you. You're the adult in the room. Now, do you go down to the level of the toddler, or do you stay where you are and speak to the toddler with compassion, with understanding, and try to clarify whatever the situation is? I'm hoping you're the latter. I'm hoping you're not the kind of person who would get into the toddler's face and start fighting back. There's plenty of those around. Trust me, I see them. So This is where it's going to get tricky because I live, and again, I can be grateful for the country that I live in and the freedoms that it continues to give me, and I enjoy in them. And I can also criticize this country, especially the part or the area of the country that I am in. Just because I'm criticizing it does not mean I am not grateful. I still remain very grateful, and I give thanks every day. Trust me, because I wouldn't be able to do this where the place that I left, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. So I fully acknowledge this. But I live in a country that unfortunately has a good chunk of unconscious human beings, especially in the area that I live and reside in. And the people that I see, and these are local people, not they don't tend to be immigrants. They tend to be, unfortunately, I don't want to say the word, but just, white people. As horrible as that sounds, and I do apologize, but that's my own experience, okay? They hate kids. They hate kids. And if you look at the mass immigration that's happening right now in the West, especially in Canada, where it's persistent, it's continuous, the counter argument is we have a declining birth rate. And that's true. There is a declining birth rate. It is visible when you look around you. You see that the number of older human beings outnumbers anything else that is around. Again, it could be specific for the area that I live in, but that is what I'm referencing. And if you speak to people who are of childbearing age, they will take offense when you mention children. Children has become something that they hate. I don't, and I'm really trying to be careful with my words. But children in schools, from my own personal observation, are treated poorly by the adults in schools who tend to not have children. Children are seen as an inconvenience for the majority. For the majority in the Western developed nations, including the country that I'm in, they are seen as an inconvenience, they are seen as a burden, and people are choosing not to have them. Not just that, but you're going to find adults actually belittling children and arguing with children in public. And that I didn't understand that when I saw it, but now that I see it, I get it. I understand that this is a sign of very, very low evolution. And I keep saying, without being insulting and demeaning, that, the country that I live in is it's a very low vibrational country. It's a very low vibrational country, and it's not the only one. In case people get angry and feel like I'm attacking their country, I'm truly not. We, people like myself, have been placed here for a reason. We're here for a reason, and that reason is to hopefully begin to elevate that vibration. I'm not here to just bitch and complain and dump, okay? Yeah, so this is a sign of lack of evolution. And that's no different when you're an evolved human being, you consider yourself a conscious human being, and then somebody says something to you in passing, somebody does something that hopefully doesn't hurt you in passing, which happens to me a lot, or online, and you choose to pick a fight with that person and engage with them at that point. You've dipped. You might be evolved, but you've lost consciousness. You've allowed that person to sink you down from where you are. And I'm here to remind myself and to remind you that we need to hold our frequency. Oh my God, I can't talk today. We need to hold our frequency. We need to hold our vibration. And as you practice this, you might lose it once. You might get triggered twice. The third time, you're going to be good. And then you're going to go down again and you get triggered another time and you won't respond, but you're going to know inside of you, okay, that person triggered me, but I was semi-aware, 50% aware. And it's a practice, a little bit by little bit. And eventually you're going to reach a point where anyone who tries to trigger you, especially if they are unconscious, especially if they are not aware. You're going to treat them the same way you would treat a toddler who's losing their shit in front of you. You just won't engage. Or you're going to engage from a very high frequency. You're going to maintain your frequency. It takes a lot of trial and error to get here. I want to say I, for the most part, am there. I've arrived, but it's still a challenge because I have my spots, especially regarding the religion that I lived under, the way I was treated because I'm a woman, how money was used against me, oppression, covering my face, covering my hair. I have a lot of trauma in these areas. And I'm going to go back and remind you that you as a person probably have something similar as well. You will find that the average Joe Blow doesn't trigger you until the average Joe Blow says something special, specific, something personal that you just can't let go of. And that's where the gold is. That's where the challenge is going to be. And that's where the work needs to get done. All right, where am I? When you are evolved, you allow children the space they need to grow and become who they are rather than dictate mandates to them. You love children. You see the potential in children. And here the metaphor is children as well as people who are unawake, unaware, consciousness hasn't reached them yet, whatever it is, right? You give them the space to make their own mistakes and learn, so long as it's not at the cost of yourself. All right? Yourself, not your egoic self. I'm talking about your actual true self, because there's the self and then there's the ego. And it's interesting because in the Sufi books that I'm reading, it confuses me because they talk about the true ego. Hello, whoever's here giving hearts. Who's here? Say hello. The Sufi books that I'm reading, they talk about the true ego and the false ego. So the false ego is the one that is living here and is associated with money and beauty and power and this and that and this religion and this race and this skin tone and this identity sexually, and that's the false ego, the one you see in the mirror. That's the false ego. The true ego is the I am, which I find interesting because they say true ego and I would get confused. I'm like, what true ego? But we vilified the ego. Like in the spiritual community, the ego, like if you want to shit on someone or dump on them, you call them egoic. It has this negative connotation. Whereas in Sufi, Michael, hello. In Sufi, Michael Valor, hello love, how are you? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Yes, where was I? The true ego is the I am. So consciousness, awareness, source energy, spirit. That's the true ego. So I just find it interesting. Sufi spirituality tries not to associate anything negative with any term, which I love. I really love that because, like I said, we've come to vilify the ego. And they don't want that, so they use the term the false ego to separate the false ego from the true ego, which is, I am or source energy. So back to what I was saying, you see the potential in children, you give them the space they need to grow, and you admire them. You admire them for their growth. You allow them that space. Okay, you can have your fit. I'll watch you have your fit. Yeah, I can't stop you from having your fit. I'm certainly not going to enter the space of your fit. I'm going to stay just over here, at my own frequency, my own vibration, while you have your fit. And maybe when you're done your fit, we can talk. That kind of thing. And you'd be surprised when you hold your own, when you hold your vibration, your space, your frequency in front of someone who's losing it and trying to attack you, and you just sort of just don't lower that vibration. I've actually seen this in real life play in front of me. I've seen someone hold their vibration while a woman was losing her shit, calling him every name in the book, telling him she's gonna call the police. Every threat, she threatened him, and he didn't wince. He just stood there and looked at her with a smile, with a grin. I didn't understand it because I wasn't aware, but I really admired him. I knew she was a lunatic because she was behaving like a lunatic. But I'm like, man, I wish I could have that, you know? And that's exactly it. In the end, you become sort of an inspiration. That person eventually, as they unravel, they're unraveling in front of themselves. You're not playing in that game, and they're going to see that. And it's going to hurt them. Like, it's going to, at the very least, make them stop and re-examine something. If not immediately, at some point, it will. I hope, if they're a normal human being. If they're completely crazy and a shit show, then you better get out. All right, so you admire children, and the same goes for unconscious humans. As difficult as it is to get to this point and stay there, because unconscious humans can present as adults. And this is the challenge that is required for us to begin to achieve a semblance of peace on this planet. Right now, because the leaders, the majority of world leaders, if not all of them, are unconscious, unaware, unawakened. You literally have children. It's like, I guess, let's not say children because I don't want to insult children too, because children I find are a little bit more conscious and aware than adults, at least of their own space. But it's almost like the lunatics are running the asylum, you know, if you want to use a common phrase. So the lunatics are running the asylum. That's what it feels like right now. And that's why nobody's making any good decisions. And that includes, I love, you know, the President of the United States. I don't have any issues with him. He's always working towards peace. But he has his moments where I look at him and I'm like, WTF, you know? Like, not everything he does is perfect. And I realize that I'm not trying to turn anybody off. I realize that there's a lot of people who disagree with me. So outside of that, you are the evolved one, if you consider yourself that. So don't let it get to your head and start snubbing those who are unconscious. It's just so important. I don't even, like, I don't even know what to say. And it's so common in the spiritual community. It's so common. You see, oh, they're not conscious, they're not evolved, I can't talk to them. I'm evolved. You're not. You're as bad as they are. If you're going to use consciousness and evolution and being awake and aware as a way to look down on people, then what's the point? What's the point? But there's a saying in Arabic that I wanted to bring, that I wanted to tell you about, and I wanted to change that saying a little bit. In Arabic, we say خُذُوا عَلَى قَدْ عَقْلُ. If you're Arabic and you speak Arabic and you're watching this, the term خُذُوا عَلَى قَدْ عَقْلُ means speak to this person within their own limitations, or interact with this person bearing in mind their own limitations. So if you are more expanded, more aware, more evolved than the person that you're dealing with, I'm not telling you lower yourself, but humble yourself to be able to deal with them within their limitations without lowering your frequency. That's probably a good way to put it. خُذُوا عَلَى قَدْ عَقْلُ in Arabic is usually, we say it when you're implying that someone is stupid. You know, this person is dumb, just, you know, talk to them like you're stupid, you know? And that's not what it's a horrible way to interact with another human being. But the saying I like, and I would like to elevate that saying. So from interacting with someone because you think they're dumb and stupid and an idiot, and you're gonna lie to them and deceive them because you're a lot more smart than they are. No. Be humble in your interactions with those who are less awake, less aware, less evolved than you. Carry that compassion. They'll feel it. They'll feel it in you, and it will change them. I can't. I don't even know what to tell you. I recently interacted with someone. It's been a long saga with this person for, I think, we're finishing 3, maybe 4 months now. And I see everything, like they're not awake, they're not aware, and I see it. And they're treating me, and they're doing things, I don't want to say to me, but they're doing things that in the past probably would have hurt me deeply. But because I've gained a lot of awareness and insight, I just let them do everything and say everything and make all the promises and all that. And they falter every time. I've never said a negative word to them. Not once. I just observe. And when they break their promise to me, I just don't say anything. I just go about my own, my own stuff. I do my own thing. They eventually came back to me and they fulfilled every last promise, finally, to me. And they showed me an aspect of themselves, I believe, that they were afraid, perhaps, because they've been hurt so much by other people. So they showed me an aspect of themselves that is more humane, that is more kind, that is humble, rather than the ego that I was used to seeing. So treat people that way, please, because you're going to be the reason they change. There's an old saying, was it Gandhi? I forget who said it, but be the change you want to see in this world. And have the patience. Have that patience, And who was it in Arabic? Ya Sabr Ayub? Was it Ayub? Was it Jacob that was known for his patience? Ya Sabr Ayub. Be patient with people right now. Be patient with yourself right now. And it's only when you're patient with yourself will you begin to allow people to do mistakes, to just do their mistakes. And you won't take it so personal because you're patient with yourself, because you don't judge yourself anymore. Alright, so that's what I wanted to say about khudu ala ad-da'lu in a good way, not in a deceptive way that is meant to belittle or harm, but rather to allow people space. So don't judge and don't treat people like, when you're more evolved, when you're aware, when you're awakened, don't treat them like they're the plague. Don't do it. It's not nice. It's just not nice. I think, if the shoe were on the other foot, how would you feel, kind of thing. So this stems from understanding the concept of oneness and seeing the one in every form you encounter, be it human, be it beast, be it plant or insect. That is the big umbrella that this live stream falls under. And that is also the concept of oneness that is very, very misunderstood, at least in the religion that I come from, that I left. The concept of oneness is meant that in a way that if I belong to this group of people, let's say, from this faith, and if somebody harms this group of people, then that person is my enemy. That's not being one. That's not oneness. That is division. That's division. Oneness is misunderstood, and it is misinterpreted, and it is propagated in that misinterpretation throughout religions. Even in the political sphere here during Black Lives Matter, when they started taking the knee, Trudeau and even the conservatives were taking the knee. It was incredible to watch. They started repeating, the Conservative Party started repeating Islamist propaganda about oneness and how, we are like fingers. We are all fingers on one hand. And when one finger is cut off, that hand doesn't function well. I'm like, that's a very distorted, twisted, I don't even know what that is, but I know it's extremist and it's Islamists who teach us this because they want you to go and punish the person who hurt you. And that's not the concept of oneness. Oneness, and I've reached that point or that understanding so much that I love everything. When I walk, there's a prominent surah in the Quran. Of course, you'd think I'd remember it now, but it would talk about one of the previous prophets, and you'd think I'd remember that prophet. Man, I suck with religion. But the prophet, when he would walk, he was so loving that he would make sure he doesn't step on ants. If anyone knows who that prophet is, please type it in the comments. So yeah, and I never understood that. I'm like, why doesn't he want to step on ants? Like, who does that, you know? And now, when I go outside, like, I have a balcony that I frequently sit and enjoy and look at the birds and the trees and experience oneness. I'm very aware of the insects. And I'm very cautious not to step on any of them. Be it an ant, be it a spider, be it a potato bug, be it a worm, anything. Or get in their way. Like, I have little, ant, what do you call them? Like, they build their little homes. I leave everything the way it is. I have weeds on my balcony. I leave it. I try not to disrupt too much. And I know I'm probably, because I'm an empath, I've gone way extreme. But I leave life to do its thing. It's gonna balance itself out. It's not my job to step on this insect and kill it and kill that fly. If there's a fly in the house, I just open the door and wait for it to go out. Because that is recognizing the concept of oneness. I cannot think about animal abuse. I cannot. Having said all this, you should know that I still eat meat. I eat meat and I make it a point. Every time I eat anything, vegetable, meat, anything that was alive, anything that had a life, before I start eating, or as I'm cooking even, I say thank you for your life. Thank you for the life that I'm about to consume. That's going to feed me. That's going to feed the people I love. I really, I say it, not just words. I say it with intent, and I imagine that animal frequently. I imagine it as it's being, sacrificed. And not to guilt myself, but just so I can send it good energy and wish that energy well and thank it. And I believe, it does what it's supposed to do. Let's just put it that way. Because I can't punish myself for being a human being who, needs to eat. I've limited my meat consumption, but I'm also very aware of my consumption of food. And consuming an animal life is no different than consuming a plant life. And that's probably a different topic altogether. But that's just with regards to oneness. You are here. We are here. I am here. We are all here because consciousness wants to experience itself. And part of consciousness experiencing itself is our interactions with each other, is your consumption of food, of your consumption of water, of you swimming in the ocean. Of all of this is consciousness, of you going out and feeling, the breeze on your skin, of watching the trees, touching the trees. That's all consciousness experiencing itself. I'm not here to limit that. It's not my place to say I'm going to become a vegetarian because I can't handle an animal dying. I don't like it. Trust me, if there was a better way, I'd do it. But I also realize that's not my job. It's not my job. That's a limiting belief. If consciousness is here to experience itself, then may it be so. And I'm going to end this live stream now. All right. I believe there's nobody here. After how many minutes of me okay, I don't know. It's been a while. Oh, wow. It's almost 45 minutes. Okay. All right, guys. I believe I'm done. Love you. And let me know in your comments. Please keep them respectful after this live stream. And I'm going to try to come on here at least once every Sunday and do a live. No promises, because who knows? Can't commit to the future. I love you, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you so much for being here. All right, let's finish off.